We also have a policy that we do a straight across raise, and I strongly disagree with that. If I'm okay, I'm Aaron, and I've got 4 guys working for me, and 2 of them really busted and work hard, and I got 1 that you just can't get the work out of it, then I don't think it's fair. Number 1, I don't think it's fair. But number 2, I don't see where you're putting a carrot or incentive to that guy to do any different. If he knows he's going to get the 4% raise whether he works hard or not, then let the other 2 guys work hard and he's going to get the same raise. So I can see where you put it in, and I don't know that we have to do a 4% raise because we gave a very heavy raise last year. Let's say that you said to your, and this is something I would have to check with Miriam tomorrow, let's say that you set a 1 to 3%. So in your budget you plan for 3, but knowing that not everyone's going to take that 3%, get that 3% raise. Thank you, Jason.
Do we, sorry to interrupt, do we have the evaluations, employee evaluations?
It's not in our policy.
It's not in our policy, and it used to be done here. It used to be done here. And they did it on a 6-month basis, and somehow we got out of it.
So it's never been in our policy whatsoever for performance evaluations?
That's something I'll talk with Marion tomorrow. I think it can be addressed and changed sometime for next year's budget.
Okay.
And you can utilize that and do that. But you're rewarding someone who's not putting out the same performance of work as the other person. That's wrong, and a straight across board is unfair. So,
but it will depend on whether or not
Marion can make it work.
Because we are under, I mean, they've served this year under a personnel policy that doesn't call for that. So, yeah, that I think is a really key question. This is typical of what industry and business does. I mean, you don't do it across the board typically. So you are, rating and rating employees based on their performance, and then divvying up the pool of raises based on performance. So
I think probably years ago it happened because you know how we talk how many hours we spend working on a budget. You spend hours and hours and hours on hours trying to get yourself organized for budget, and I think it became probably simplified, easy to just do straight across raises at some time. And
well, the personnel policy has been there for quite some time, for a number of years, so it's been at least since that was instituted, and I think it's at least 10 years. Because I believe it was last done under Randy. Last updated. We had
updated under Randy, just where he went out of office.
So it's been a while.
So before we made our change, because we wanted to get our wonderful guys up, do you remember what the average salary was at that time?
Back then, your average worker for the city was making $18 an hour. $17.50 to $18 an hour.
I was just thinking, if we gave a raise this year, didn't that bump that up like 10,000?
You raised it up last year, so they're up at $20 an hour.
It's pretty much a 5%.
The difference is if you still have a large difference, and that's because for years you have gave the supervisors who are paid more, you gave them the same 4%. So right now, if you take our salaried people and divide it out into hours, 80 hours, they're being paid approximately $35 an hour. So when you give that $35 an hour a raise, it's much better, much stronger than when you give the $20 an hour. So your difference keeps getting larger and larger.
But those salaried are now recently salaried and no longer eligible for overtime.
Correct.
So, I mean, we're kind of in a position too where by taking them to salary, we indicated that we would keep them more. So,
but we used to pay them $25 an hour, they were eligible for overtime. And if you looked at my W-2s that I stored downstairs, by the time they made overtime for the year, not a one of them made over $74,550. So
But that was a couple of years ago.
that was a year and a half ago, and it changed over.
I'm just saying.
We have not heard that.
Let the picture, to see what the impact will be on raising the, I'm not opposed to what you're saying, but, you know, we need more data than we have here.
I think what you have here is the easy solution is if you cap, if you freeze our superintendents this year, and our salaried people. It is amazing what you save in 1 year's time. And you are, I will just be honest with you, Aaron and I had a long talk about it. Did not bother him a bit to be frozen for 1 year. As long as he received his benefits, he said, I'm more concerned about my benefits. But he said, my salary's fine. If it comes to freezing it and keeping my men and keeping them happy, then I'm fine with it. So I don't think your superintendents are gonna have an issue.
I could get behind the recommendation of freezing superintendents 1 to 3% on hourly employees.
There's a third part of that.
Elected
Well,
officials.
Yeah, the elected
Elected
officials.
officials
And
freeze.
city council with 0.
Yeah.
Well, I think the same way for the mayor now. There should not be an increase next year. If you're freezing,
You guys are salary, right?
we're salary.
Right, so it would still
So
fall.
it's still falls under
I
that
think it
category.
falls underneath that
It is.
category and should.
Yeah, it's different on the salary schedule, but yes, it is basically a salary position.
Is there any opposition to that idea?
I haven't talked to anybody. I just know from owning a business, that's your biggest expense,
Is your salary.
is your salary.
I like the 1 to 3, like, that makes sense, like, give somebody the flexibility to decide whether they're gonna get a bigger increase or a smaller increase.
But
Well,
that's
I
if
want to
the-
get to a point though that where we look at cutting benefits.
Um,
I don't want, I know that some cities and towns have said, okay, this is getting bad, and maybe not as bad as what we're looking at. But I know that some have said, okay, we will provide only insurance, you know, that 90-10 ratio. We will only apply it for the employee, and the employee has to insure the family. That has to come out of his check. I don't want to do that to our employees. I don't wanna do that.
How many hourly employees do we have?
24, maybe 27.
So, is it feasible to keep them at the 4% raise like we were gonna do for the department heads, or is
I
that-
think if Barry says she can work it and fix it so that you can do a graduated raise, not every employee deserves a 4% raise.
Of course, they guys made a good raise last year.
They got a very
Got a
healthy
good
raise last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Was it 7% last year? I think it
8.
was.
I
Eight.
think
Did
we
we
give
do
them
8?
8. I think we give them 8 last year.
Okay.
Pretty sure we did.
My
So-
opinion is 1 to 3.
I don't know, I think 1 to 4, just because of the way the cost of living's gone up.
Yeah.
Because that was an
Mhm.
8%, or 8, I said 8% inflation rate. And I mean, if they're only making $20 an hour,
Yeah.
and they get maxed out at 4%, I mean, that's really not too terribly much more. But 8%, and I mean, there's still, the cost of living's still gone up.
Yep.
Well, and just like Aaron was saying, he's fully staffed, and I think that's wonderful amount of time. You
Yeah.
Keep it fully
Yeah.
staffed.
Yes.
That's the same
So
thing.
I would
with
like to see them
every
get,
department.
yeah. I just think we ought to freeze the big, stop hours and
Yep.
the salary.
So freeze board positions, at 0, freeze, 0 increase for those, 0 increase for salaried elected officials, which are salaried. And the hourly employees range from 1 to 4%.
I mean, we budget for 4, but.
We budget for 4.
But it'll be, if we can
Yes.
get the evaluations done, if we can get that changed in the policy, if we
Miriam
can't.
says we can.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, we can't, we still have to do the 4%, that's still not a huge deal.
Not on what they
Just-
make.
Yeah, I think they have a smaller set.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make those changes and obviously send this back out to
Yep.
everybody. We have not, I guess I would get an opinion from those of you who are serving on council and on the area plan. We have not budgeted anything for that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
We are not presently paying anyone. Now that we've withdrawn from area plan, do you think that will impact how we can attract people
I
at
don't think-
$25 a meeting?
I don't think this first year would make a big
I
difference.
don't either.
No.
Maybe revisit it next year budget time.
Yeah.
But right now, no, I think.
Or say I'm not doing it for the money. So
Right.
Yeah.
that's
Right.
that's
I
pretty
think
much
that's
where we're at
pretty
with
much
it.
with everybody.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
And I think if it becomes more of a quote unquote burden or whatever it is after next year, if we start having meetings every week or every 2 weeks or something, well, hopefully not every week, but like twice a month or something like that, then maybe revisit it, because there's some people that, you know, get kind of talked into doing it and they don't really know what they're making, but at the same time, they're like, I really don't want to do this for free either. And I want to make sure we still have some incentive to get people to do it, because look how hard it's been to get people to get here. And especially, no offense, with the younger generation, they won't compensate it.
Yeah.
So I think
that-
moving further after next year, once we start getting the cycle going, look into it.
That's what I
It
think.
makes sense too, because the kinds of things that we'll be dealing with probably in the next few months are more procedural, until the number of permits and rezones and things of that sort ramps up. You know, the prep time for the meetings will not be huge. You know, if we start having a lot of special use exceptions for BZA, and that's, you know, like say 3 or 4 or 5 that they need to review before the meeting, you know, then that's adding a burden, but we're not
there yet.
So,
And then of course, once that starts happening, that's something we start getting more of the tax base, then we can
Yes.
look into a better percentage increase.
Yeah, I know, so going to the city council salaries, I know in like previous years, we've kind of increased that, but trying to keep people interested. And I do feel like this year, I feel like there's more interest than like when we all first ran. It's just like, pretty solid, like 0%. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we did 0% the last time too, and look how this year turned out, at 0% again.
yeah.
So, no issue with it.
Well, I'd just like to see that money go into some of these different areas that I think we really need to build up.
Yeah, I still just want to make sure we take care of our employees.
Yeah.
good.
It's mine.
Mike, could you mute yourself until, you should still be able to hear us. We're getting.
Mute?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there, thank you.
Tap all you want, my friend.
Now you
Look
can
at
tap.
that, if we get on there, and I kept thinking, where's that coming from?
Okay. Attorney came down, refused about 53% of that 30,000 through July. But frankly, we don't anticipate that we're gonna have, you know, too many major things happening. So I think if we reduce it to 25 next year, we should be fine. Engineering consultant, we talked about earlier, and we don't have engineering staff, and so we have to rely on outside engineers, and those bills add up.
Yeah.
I took away I recommended not doing the council attorney.
Agreed.
Obviously, if you need that at some point, you could probably transfer from another line item, but See a need for it?
I don't see a need for it.
Probably more.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not using the mileage. So, telephone, and that is that's telephone for virtually all of the departments except for police, correct, Leanne? So,
Yes. I think there's cell phone plans in there too.
yeah, it is. I bumped it up a little bit because we're at 67%.
I know.
And, you know, so those fees keep increasing. Computers, Leanne, are you okay if we reduce that from 15 to 10?
Yes, I'm only gonna look at replacing one in my office. So then the servers, both servers I think are stable, and I think we're all right there. I think there's a cushion. What am I gonna use, $1,400 out of that? So I think we're in good shape. The police should be in fairly good shape other than the 2 new officers down there.
Right, and they have
They
a
have
budget.
their own computer line.
Yes, they do. So this is pretty much the other departments.
So we really should be fine.
Advertising, again, we've only used 1,500 through July, so reducing that from 4,000 to 2,500. Property and vehicle insurance did go up, as did, well, health insurance and others went up too, assuming a 5% increase on those. And on utility, streetlights. Animal control stayed the same. Flood control we discussed earlier, why that's going up. Dues and institutes, I think I bumped that up just because, you know, we did spend more this year. I left it even. The training that, like for BZA and
Yeah.
Plan Commission, and not everyone went through this year, so we'll probably have some that will want that training next year. And any training that you may wish to send any of your people through, Leanne. So just flat on that. I don't know if we're just not using that code enforcement line item there. We've spent $10 out of the 4,500, so we need to look at that, but we either reduce it to 0 or take it down to the.
I think at one time we had the code enforcer there because we was going to pay him out of general, but did we not end up paying him out of it?
He's still being paid out of it.
Yeah, so I'm not real sure.
But if this were, you know, an employee, then it would be more than this.
Sure.
So this was the expense part of it.
But I think the expense part's just been taken out of it. I'll have to look at it.
Yeah. Cemetery contract, we left it the same. This year, some of that 10,000 that is not spent on mowing. The amount that's spent year to date is mostly the mowing contracts for the cemeteries. The replatting, the platting of the expansion for Morning Heights Cemetery, we don't know what that's going to run and what the timetable for that will be. Marion is helping us to identify through the Indiana Cemetery Association people who are qualified to do that work and to get estimates from them on platting the 2 acres. So we may know more before we're ready to, you know, put this in stone, so to speak, but right now we're just keeping it even with what was budgeted last year. And last year, I mean, this year we did assume that we would be able to start cleaning some of the stones in Robinson Baum and in Morning Heights, but we have not done any of that. Again, in anticipation that we're gonna probably use that money for platting.
That's one thing, it's like, I do think that would be a good expansion, like, if we're gonna spend money on something, like, I think it's desperately needed.
Definitely is.
And we're gonna change what we sell the various sites for.
Oh,
That,
absolutely.
yes.
We
Oh, what was it,
probably
$5?
need to look at
$8.
whether
$8, alright.
$8 a space.
we probably
Buy
have
a
to
cemetery lot.
set up a cemetery
What do you
board as well. We do not have a cemetery board established, so.
Huh.
And they would also be involved in establishing fees and any maintenance costs that are associated. We don't charge any maintenance fees. So,
I think those spaces out there were sold with perpetual care. So for $8,
So
you
for
bought a
$8
space for
forever.
perpetual care. And over the years of that cemetery, the price never ever changed.
Pretty good deal.
So wouldn't it always be perpetual care? How do you get,
Well, on your new lots, I would have to ask Carl, I have it in different ones, but I think perpetual care is usually extended to them. So but they would be paying $250 was the last time Carl and I talked for space. So that makes a big difference. Big numbers. But I think at some time that perpetual care does run out and the city has to absorb it and maintain it. So,
Like Greenbush Cemetery in Lafayette.
yes.
yeah, you can.
That was the township.
Okay, and then no other increases. We did have a summer intern, spent $2,000, that'll come, so that's not reflected in that year-to-date number. And probably would budget, leave the 2,500 for next year on that. Most of those things are coming down slightly.
what's that better?
Most of those categories,
Oh, yeah.
just looking at the percent increase or whether they stayed the same, we've reduced, the promotional line item, 500, et cetera, those other numbers. Leanne, do you have anything in the clerk treasurer budget that you want to address?
Let me be totally honest. We studied so many things, I never looked at my budget that you did.
I think I made some assumptions, taking down the office supplies was at 857 through July, so reducing that just 500 to 2,000. Left the alcohol drug testing.
Yep.
The legal and consulting, we have used all of that. Is that
Yep.
what you use for Baker Tilly or?
Sure is,
Yeah.
sure is.
But we're just a little over half of the year.
Yeah.
You're gonna put another 5,000 by the end of the year.
We'll try to get that. We'll be okay. We'll make it.
We used to pay a service company to do the recodification, and the city attorney has been doing that in recent years, the last couple of years, and that has ended up costing us less than using the outside service. We've gone on with the police unless there is something that you would like to revisit there.
So police,
Yeah.
there is something I would agree with it. Thought a lot about this whole card situation. I've had a few conversations. I very much want take-home cards, but I'm really not seeing where maths. I think we should at some point really consider maybe mixing that.
You said he nixed the Ford car, is that right?
The fourth car for this year.
He nixed the Ford car, so we're not doing the fourth car?
You can.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 'cause that was, I brought my little thing, my cheat sheet. So we're down to the 3 cars.
So he really wanted 4 cars. We have 1 car in our budget this year, and we had some encumbered funds. So we can get that 1 car for him, and if you tell me to, I can get 2 more cars for him.
You're saying 2 more cars in addition to the one?
In addition to the 1.
Yeah.
Because at one point in time, you as a council approved the take-home car plan. I will say again, I was against it, not because I'm against take-home cars, I am against it because I do not think it helps create a sustainable budget for the police department. You're looking at now, and keep in mind, he's looking at purchasing 3 more cars in this next year's budget. But you're looking at a little over $1 million for our police department. You're looking at roughly $3 million in revenue, so you're taking $1 million for the police department, you're taking $1 million for the street department. Now you're gonna say for $1 million, you gotta pay for all the insurance and all of the utilities and everything else. And I understand there are wishes and there are wants, but I don't see that we can sustain it at that rate. Now, I also understand that he should have less in garage and motor because those cars will be driven less. And I also understand he plans to only rotate 1 car a year afterwards. But if I still look at his budget, even if I freeze his wages this year, look where his budget is compared to past. I understand prices are going up, but if you go down through his budget, I see necessities, but I see a lot of
So maybe next year, instead of having 3 cars, we do 2, and then he can do the grant, USDA grant to get that 3rd one.
Well,
'Cause that'll be open.
yeah.
That'll be open for
Well,
him to do
he'd
that.
have a US grant open next year too. There'll
So I
be a
think if he
cycle
doesn't-
next year too for it. But I also think there are probably other places that would be easier to get it than USD.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the one that I knew he applied for a one time.
Yeah.
That's up there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there's other places that become easier. I think USDA gets hit hard, it goes quick, and
Yep.
then they have the loan program available too. But I think and it was like, the most we could get was 50,000, and if we were gonna get 2 cars, it had to be 50,000 for 2 cars. So it wasn't like 50,000 each car.
Yeah, 50, you're still spending 50 grand to get another car plus
Yes.
outfitting.
You got
But
to.
at least you would cover half.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to go any less than 2 cars for next year because I want to keep the cycle going up for the cars. And I really think that maybe the 3rd car could be under, if you can find the grant for, which I think you can get the grant for it.
Yeah, I think there are more places. He's working with that thing that.
The lease grant, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds real promising.
Those-
And it sounds like a quicker process too.
And I
usually-
mean, that would save at least 65,000, if
Right.
not a little bit more.
With this
50 for
said,
the car,
I very much
15.
want take-home cars for the police. I very much want more things for the cops, community. I think that Carroll County as a whole is lacking in police presence. But I would have to agree with the 2 cars. The one that we have on direct contract, one more.
Well,
No, for next year.
I
for next
think
year.
sometimes you've got to go back to a little bit of logic too. Because how many do you have on staff at the county now? You got 12, you got 13? 13. I mean, miles you can cover.
A lot.
Yeah. Over 4,000 miles?
Well, I can tell you, I probably put between 300 and 400 miles on my car today.
I think the county roads are over 4,000 miles. So we come within our street limits, or within our city limits. We got 119